Good morning, everybody. So today I am going to read chapter 25 to the end of the book. So I hope you enjoy. This book has been so much fun to read. We've learned about different students and how they act at Wayside School. And isn't Wayside School really funny? I mean, is that how Sanborn School is? No. The school is just a different type of school, and it was built sideways, and that means that everything was kind of weird in Wayside School. So in this chapter, we are going to read about Jenny. All right, are you ready? So Jenny came to school. Oh wait, let me put the full screen on. There we go. And then, So Jenny came to school on the back of her father's motorcycle. She was late. Wayside School began at 9 o'clock. It was almost 9:30. She kissed her father goodbye and raced up the 30 flights of stairs to Mrs. Jewell's room. "I'm sorry I'm late, Mrs. Jewell, but my father's motorcycle lost a—" There was nobody there. The room was empty. "Hello? Hello?" she cried. "Mrs. Jewell? Donna? Todd? Anyone?" There was no one in the room. "Well, maybe I'm early," Jenny thought. She looked at the clock. It was exactly 9:30. "Oh, I hope they didn't go on a field trip without me." She looked out the window. Nobody was there, not even Louis. Jenny didn't know what to do, so she sat down at her desk. She watched the second hand go around the clock. "I might as well catch up on my spelling," she thought. She opened her desk and took out her speller. Mud. M-U-D spells mud. Where is everybody? B-L-O-O-D spells blood. I hope nothing happened to them. Black. B-L-A-C-K spells black. Jenny heard footsteps coming down the hall. She began to work very fast. H-A-C-K spells hack. S-M-A-C-K spells smack. Someone opened the door. Jenny turned around. "Ack!" she gasped. He was a man Jenny had never seen before. He had a black mustache and a matching attache case. Jenny jumped out of her seat. "Get back in your seat," the man said. Jenny slowly sat down. The man walked over and sat down in Dana's seat, facing Jenny. He opened his attache case and removed some papers. "What is your name?" he asked her. "Jenny," Jenny whispered. "Jenny?" the man repeated as if he didn't believe her. "Well, it's actually Jennifer. Jenny for short," said Jenny. "I see," said the man. He took the speller from Jenny's desk. Jenny's name was written across the top. He put the speller in his attache case. "What are you doing here, Jennifer?" he asked. "This is my classroom," said Jenny. "Are you sure?" said the man. "Yes, I think so. I mean, where is the rest of the class?" the man asked. "I don't know," said Jenny. "Maybe they went on a field trip." "No," said the man. "They didn't go on a field trip." "Well, I don't know where they are," Jenny cried. "I was half an hour late. And when I got here, everybody was gone." "Really? Did something happen to them?" The man didn't answer. He wrote something down on the paper. "Tell me something, Jennifer. When you came to school today and saw that nobody was here, weren't you somewhat puzzled?" said the man. "Why did you work on spelling?" "I don't know," said Jenny. It would seem to me, um, the man said, that if a child came to school and nobody was there, she might play games or walk around or go home, but certainly not work on spelling." Jenny started to cry. "I don't know. I don't know what to do. I was late and I had to ride on a motorcycle and nobody was here, and now you're asking me all kinds of questions, and I'm afraid of what might had happened to Dana and Mrs. Jewell and Rondi," said Allison. The man didn't understand a word she said. Jenny heard more footsteps. The man got up and opened the door. Two more men came in. One had a black mustache like the first man, and the other man was bald. "Does she know?" asked the newcomer with the mustache. "She claims she knows nothing," the first man answered. "She says she was late today, and when she got here, everybody was gone." "Do you believe her?" asked the man with the bald head. "I'm not sure. She was working on her speller when I walked in." He reached into his attache case and took out Jenny's speller. He handed it to the man with the bald head. The bald man read Jenny's name across from it. Tell me, Jenny, he said, why are you the only one here? I don't know, said Jenny. Has this ever happened before, he asked. No, never, said Jenny. He gave Jenny her speller. Put this inside your desk. Jenny put it away. I'm satisfied, said the man with the bald head. Okay, Jennifer, said the man. You may go now. Jenny got out of the seat. Jenny, the bald man called. Jenny turned slowly around. Yes, she whispered. Next time, don't come to school on a Saturday. So Jenny was late to school, but it was the wrong day. She came to school on a Saturday. All right, chapter 26, Terrence. Terrence was a good athlete, but a bad sport. So he wasn't a team player. A bad sport means that he wasn't a team player. He didn't really know how to play in a team. Ronnie and Allison were playing two square with a red ball. Can I play? Asked Terrence. No, Allison replied. You have to let me play, Terrence said. Lois says we have to share the balls. Well, we're not sharing with you, said Allison. Oh, let him play, said Rondi. All right, said Allison. We'll play three square. You better play right, I said. I will, said Terrence. Allison bounced the ball to Rondi. Rondi bounced it over to Terrence. Terrence caught it and kicked it over the fence. You have to go get it, said Allison. Shut up, Dixie Cup, Terrence answered. Rondi ran and told Louis. DJ and Damon were also playing basketball. Uh-oh, here comes Terrence, said Damon. Hey, let me play. Get lost, Terrence. You have to share the balls, Louis said. Says so, said Terrence. Okay, but just throw it in the basket. Don't kick it. First, Damon took a shot. It bounced off the black backboard through the hoop. Next, DJ took a shot. He threw it underhand way up in the air. It came down through the hoop without touching the rim. Then Terrence took a shot. He kicked it over the fence. Take a train, Peanut Brain, Terrence answered. DJ went and told Louis. Stephen, Calvin, Joe, John, and Leslie were all playing Spud. Stephen was it. Everyone else had a number. Stephen had to throw the ball up in the air and call out a number. The person who had that number had to try to catch it. Can I play? Asked Terrence. No, said Calvin. You'll just kick the ball over the fence. No, said Joe. No way, said John. No, said Leslie. Sure, said Stephen. Newcomers are it. He gave the ball to Terrence. Just threw the ball up in the air and call out a number between 1 and 5. Eric, said Terrence. Okay, said Terrence. The children formed a circle around Terrence. 1,000,000, yelled Terrence as he kicked the ball over the fence. What did you do that for? Asked Stephen. Eat a frog. Stephen ran and told Louis. Terrence looked around. There was nothing to do. There were no balls left. Louis looked up to him. He was followed by Allison, Rondi, Damon, DJ, Stephen, Calvin, Joe, John, and Leslie. What's the matter, Terrence? There are no balls, Terrence, said Terrence. Do you have a green ball? No, said Louis. All my balls have mysteriously disappeared. Darn it, said Terrence. There's nothing left to kick. Nothing left to kick, asked Louis. Oh, I don't know about that. What do you think, Ronnie? Is there anything left to kick? Ronnie thought a minute. Then she smiled. She was missing her 2 front teeth. Yes, there is something left to kick, she said. Well, where is it? Asked Terrence. Let me check with Allison, said Louis. Allison, is there something left to kick? He winked at her. There sure is. What? What? Asked Terrence. How about you, Damon? Asked Louis. Can you think of anything? Damon nodded his head. Well, what is it? Asked Terrence. He couldn't wait. DJ, we got something around here to kick, asked Louis. Yes, we do. Give it to me, demanded Terrence. I don't know if I should, said Louis. What do you think, Calvin? Should I give it to him? I think you should, said Calvin. You heard Calvin, said Terrence. Give it to me. Give it to me. Not so fast, said Louis. Leslie, should I give it to him? Oh, yes, I think he deserves it, said Leslie. Give it to me, Terrence repeated. Do you think he deserves it, Joe? Asked Louis. Yes, I think so, said Joe. What about you, John? Asked Louis. Definitely give it to him, John answered. Come on, said Terrence. Recess is almost over. We'll leave it up to Stephen, said Louis. Whatever he says goes. Let him have it, said Stephen. You heard him, Louis, said Terrence. Let me have it. Okay. He picked Terrence up and kicked him over the fence. Oh boy. All right, chapter 27. Joy. Joy had forgotten her lunch at home. It was lunchtime and she was hungry, and she didn't have a meal ticket. If she had a meal ticket, she could have had a lunch from Mrs. Mush, the lunch teacher. She'd have to be terribly hungry to eat a lunch made by Miss Mush. Even an empty brown paper sack would taste better. But that's how hungry Joy was. Damon hadn't forgotten his lunch. He had brought a lovely turkey sandwich, a big piece of chocolate cake, and a crisp red apple. All he needed was a glass of milk. He would get that from Miss Mush. Miss Mush didn't know how to ruin milk. Damon left his lunch on his desk and went to the end of the milk line. Joy didn't waste any time. She reached into Damon's sack and took out the apple, but then she spotted the turkey sandwich. She put back the apple, took the sandwich, and noticed the chocolate cake. She then put back the sandwich and took out the cake. But then Joy had second thoughts. She put back the cake. Then she grabbed Damon's whole lunch. First, she ate the sandwich. It was in a baggie. When she finished the sandwich, she placed the baggie on Jason's desk. Next, she ate the chocolate cake. It was wrapped in wax paper. She put the wax paper on Allison's desk. She ate the apple last. She placed the apple core on Dee Dee's desk. Then she put the empty sack on Calvin's desk. Damon returned with his glass of milk. "Mrs. Jewls, my lunch is gone," he called. "I wonder where it could be," said Mrs. Jewls. "Calvin took it," said Joy. "There's the empty sack on his desk." "Good work, Joy," said Mrs. Jewls. "Calvin, I'm ashamed of you." She wrote Calvin's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. "Look, the baggie from Damon's turkey sandwiches is on Jason's desk," Joy called. "Very good, Joy," said Mrs. Jewls. "But how did you know that Damon had a turkey sandwich?" "I'm just that smart," said Joy. Mrs. Jewls wrote Jason's name on the blackboard under Calvin's, and there the wax paper from the delicious chocolate cake on Allison's desk, Joy announced. Joy had chocolate all around her lips. Allison stood firm. She looked into Mrs. Jewls' eyes. Joy spotted it. "No, wait, I didn't eat the cake," she said. "The evidence is there on your desk," said Mrs. Jewls. Joy spotted it. She wrote Allison's name under Jason's. "Damon's apple core is on Dee Dee's desk," said Joy. "Very good, Joy," said Mrs. Jewls. She wrote Dee Dee's name under Allison's. "Damon, I think you ought to thank Joy," said Mrs. Jewls. "She solved the mystery." "Thank you, Joy," said Damon. Just then Louis, the yard teacher, walked in. "I have your lunch, Joy," he said. "Your mother brought it. You had left it at home." "You mean you didn't have a lunch?" asked Mrs. Jewls. "You must be very hungry." "No," said Joy, "not really. Since Damon didn't get to eat, he can have it." "Thanks a lot," said Damon. "You are the greatest." He ate Joy's lunch, an old bologna sandwich and a dried-up carrot. "Joy, for being such a good detective and for being so generous with your lunch, you may help yourself to a Tootsie Pop," said Mrs. Jewls. "They are in the coffee can on top of my desk." Joy took one. Then, when Mrs. Jewls wasn't looking, she took another. Calvin, Jason, Alice, and Dee Dee had their names on the blackboard under the word discipline. But they were good for the rest of the day. So at 2:00, Mrs. Jewls erased them. She forgot all about the whole thing. Damon had a lousy lunch instead of a great lunch, but 5 minutes later it didn't make any difference. He couldn't taste it anymore, and he was full. He went outside to play basketball and forgot about the whole thing. Joy had a great lunch and 2 Tootsie Roll Pops. But 5 minutes later it didn't make any difference. She couldn't taste it anymore, and she was full. And at dinner time she was hungry, but the same thing. But a horrible thing happened. Joy couldn't forget about filching Damon's lunch, and for the rest of the year, every turkey sandwich and every piece of cake, chocolate cake, apple, and Tootsie Roll tasted like Miss Mush's porridge. So Joy felt really sick. She felt bad about eating Damon's lunch, right? She couldn't stop thinking about that one time that she stole his lunch. All right. Chapter 28. Nancy. Nancy had big hands and big feet. He didn't like his name, and he thought it was a girl's name. None of the other children in Mrs. Jewell's class thought that Nancy's name was odd. They didn't think of it as a girl's name or as a boy's name. Nancy was just the name of a quiet kid with the big hands and feet who sat over there in the corner next to John. Nancy was very quiet. He was ashamed of his name. He only had one friend, a girl who went to class on the 23rd floor of Wayside School. They were friends for a good reason. He didn't know her name, and she didn't know his. They just called each other, "Hey, you," or just plain you. Nancy was afraid to ask his friend what her name was because then he might have to tell her his name, and he could never figure out why she never asked. But he was happy just to leave well enough alone. One morning, Nancy and his friend were late. When they got to the 23rd story, his friend's teacher was waiting outside. "Hurry up, you're late, Mac," said the teacher. Nancy's friend turned red. She didn't move. "Come on, Mac, shake a leg, get the lead out," said the teacher. "Your name is Mac," said Nancy. Mac was very pretty. She had red hair and freckles, and she covered her face and ran into the room. "My name is Nancy," Nancy called after her. Mac stepped back outside. "I was ashamed to tell you my name," she said. "Me too," said Nancy. "Nancy's a girl name." "Oh, I think it's cute," said Mac. "I like the name Mac," said Nancy. "Mac is a boy's name," said Mac. "My mother has a rich aunt named Nancy," said Nancy. "That's why she gave me the name." "My mother once had a dog named Mac," said Mac. "Hey, do you want to trade?" Nancy asked. "Can we?" asked Mac. "I don't see why not," said Nancy. "Okay," said Mac. So they both spun around 100 times in opposite directions until they were so dizzy that they fell over. When they stood up, Mac was Nancy and Nancy was Mac. They said goodbye. Then Mac raced up to Mrs. Jewell's room. He was no longer shy. "Hi, everybody, my name is Mac," he announced. "I traded names." He held out his big hand. "Hi, Mac." Todd jumped up and shook it. "Hi, Mac," he said. "Glad to meet you." "How you doing, Mac?" said Ron. "Howdy, Mac," said Terrence. "Nice to see you, Mac," said BB. "You traded names?" asked Jason. Jason didn't like his name either. "That's right, Jason, old boy," said Mac. "Is that even allowed?" asked Jason. "Why not?" said Mac. "Hey, anybody want to trade names?" Jason called. "I'll trade with you," said Terrence. He didn't like his name either. "Wait, I'll trade with you, Terrence," said Mauricia. Mauricia didn't like her name. "No, he's trading with me," said Jason. "I'll trade with you, Mauricia," said Damon. "No, thanks," said Mauricia. "I'll trade with you, Damon," said Mrs. Jewell. "No, I want to be Mrs. Jewell," said Stephen. It turned out that nobody in Mrs. Jewell's class liked his name. The children all spun around in different directions until they all got so dizzy that they fell over. And when they stood up again, nobody knew who anybody was. "What are we going to do, Mrs. Jewell?" asked Leslie, who was really Eric Bacon. "My name is not Mrs. Jewell. It's Mauricia," answered Terrence, who was really Jason. "It is not. I'm Mauricia," said Dee Dee, who was really Joe. "You're both wrong," said Mauricia. "I'm Mrs. Jewell." This went on for an hour. At last they figured out who the real Rondi was. She was missing her two front teeth, and they figured out Rondi. They were able to get Allison pretty easily. And then from there, they got DJ, Damon, and Mrs. Jewell. She was the oldest one. Eventually, they figured out who everybody really was. They had some difficulty deciding which Eric was which. And actually, they were all still not absolutely sure. Everyone just decided to keep his own name. The children didn't like them, but it made things much easier. Mac and Nancy kept their new names. But when they were together, they still called each other, "Hey, you," or just plain you. That's funny. Could you imagine changing names with everybody in the classroom? That'd be funny. We wouldn't know who was who anymore. All right, good job, guys.